You guys all Sooners fans? I don't have any Oklahoma State people in here, do I? No, we don't like Oklahoma State, do we? Do we like the color orange? Good job, guys. All right, here we go.
With the first pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Cleveland Browns select Baker Mayfield.
Wow.
Quarterback, Oklahoma.
It is Baker Mayfield.
Love you guys. Appreciate your support. I'm sorry you now have to wear orange, but we're all going to go through it together because we're a part of the dog pound now.
News team, assemble!
It's time for the unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Featuring site publishers Kori Murdoch and Josh McCuistion, along with videographer Eddie Radosevich. It's the unofficial 40 on Soonerscoop.com.
All right, welcome back. It is another edition of the unofficial 40 with the entire gang is here once again. Josh McCuistion joins us, who is just coming off of a spring practice visit near his home of Houston, Texas. Went to see Kori Roberson, OU commit, and Eddie Radosevich joins us. He seems as surly as ever. Bob Prisbillo is back once again. Boys, congratulations on the last podcast. Highest downloaded podcast in the history of Sooner Scoop podcasts.
I'm taking all credit. Thank you.
Did it end up at 1.1 or 1.2 million downloads? How many did we actually end up with?
We're all retiring. We're getting rid of the website, and we're just doing podcasts from now on.
Oh, I know there'll be some members that are excited about that because we give everything away on the pod anyway, so let's roll.
By the way, sponsorships are available for a podcast that is downloaded uniquely about 25,000 times an episode. So,
booyah.
See Murdoch at Soonerscoop.com. Or Kori Murdoch at Yahoo.com, or
just get in contact with me. We'll work something out.
No, don't do that. your live read will not be read.
Can we talk about life as with Eddie as our business manager running all the day-to-day operations of the site?
It would be out of the back of a strip club. Out of the back of Sugars.
We would grow exponentially, though. There's no doubt about that.
Thank you for messing up another big word today, Eddie.
Exponentially?
There we go.
Initially. People enjoy it when Eddie mispronounces the big words.
I didn't mispronounce that one, so.
Okay, we'll take your word for it. We'll do a NBA-style last 2-minute report for the next podcast.
Well, those don't matter anyway,
My
so.
God! Right out the gate?
It just feels good to be a Cavs fan.
We're never going to get a sponsor for this show now.
Yeah, I'm sure sponsors run away from cursing. It's 2018.
Yeah.
I don't know if everybody can hear it, but I think Eddie is revving to go. I'm currently reading a book right now about Seabiscuit, and Eddie is like, he's in the starter's gate. He's ready to roll.
He really is.
At the gate to open.
He seems irritated for no reason at all.
Kentucky Derby coming up this weekend.
You worried about the tornadoes, Eddie? Is that what's going on?
No. My boy Jack has some Oklahoma ties.
Yes, he does. And is he the favorite?
No, I don't think he's the favorite.
He's the betting favorite, I think. I mean,
I don't think so. He's 30-1.
Well, I mean the betting, but he's like the bettor's favorite. Seems like he's getting a lot of play for people say you should bet this horse.
I think the
value for your money kind of thing.
Yeah.
The favorite is Justify at 3-1. People think he's the next real big thing in horse racing.
He's the next big thing.
Is Timothy Oliphant going to ride him? That would be killer.
I don't know who's on.
I don't get that joke.
Justified.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I never watched that series.
Oh, you missed it. That's a great series.
I'm sure you can still watch it. You can watch anything still.
I'm currently catching up on Brockmire, and if you all are not watching that is fantastic television.
I've never got in it.
Glad you have all this time for binge watching, Josh.
Mike E. Smith is the jockey. He's been trained by Bob Baffert, so good lineage.
Why'd you start calling recruits then, Josh? You got all this time.
You got all this time to watch while you're typing stories.
That is Bob Prisbillo with the redneck voice. That was not Kori Murdoch. Bob and Josh were down at the opening regional this weekend in Dallas, Texas. How was it, boys?
Different. different because of the way they split it up. It kind of lost its flow at times because you went offensive line, defensive line was there from 10 to noon. Then they went running backs, linebackers. Then finally you got to quarterbacks, tight ends, receivers, and the defensive backs. But you figured the OU commits like Theo Wease, Trajan Bridges, EJ, and Ogar would fare well, and it's exactly what they did. Theo, EJ punched their tickets to the opening. 17 invites alone on site. So we'll see if Trajan is able to.
I think maybe the opening's cheaping out.
If they're inviting 600 kids, yeah.
Well, here's why. No New Orleans regional. So Mississippi, Louisiana kids came to Dallas.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Yes,
there were
there
a lot
were
of good Mississippi kids
a lot
there,
of kids in that area that would have earned invites at a New Orleans regional, but since that was scrapped this year, they all came to Euless Trinity, which definitely made the level of competition a lot more. But we're looking at OU guys. Those guys don't really fall in that category.
Any bagmen in the parking lot? None.
There was definitely a fair amount of handler action going on in the parking lot. There were several of those guys lingering, but and plenty of people were more than willing to make friends with those guys. Me and Bob, we have our line in the sand. We'll go no farther.
Let me ask you this: okay, so the 7-on-7 stuff we've talked a lot about that getting out of control. Here's my question: how tolerable are OU's coaches of all that stuff?
I think fairly so, just because they don't have any other choice. I mean, that they're going to have to deal with those guys sometimes because, you look at Leon O'Neal as a good example last year. If they wanted to be truly involved with Leon O'Neal, they were going to have to be connected to a 7-on-7 guy. That was kind of the go-between for Leon. Now, why these kids think they need a go-between, I'll never understand.
Yeah,
at least
like Leon
with
O'Neal.
very few exceptions. But that's the way that goes. And like I said, OU has, and to be honest, I think OU kind of saw it in the way I'm just presenting with Bob and I was like, nope, we're not going to do that. And now they're just facing reality. I am fighting the dying of the light, but they're not. They're like, you know what? We want the best players. Sometimes we have to deal with people that maybe we wouldn't want to deal with otherwise. But they're going to go down that road.
Exactly. It's the nature of the beast now. You can't stop it. If all the top schools are going to be doing it, and it's working, that's the big thing. It's not that they're going about this method, it's that it's producing the results that they want it to. You can't get left behind. You have a lot of principles, you have your scruples, but if you have a top 15 class instead of a top 5, that's gonna show up.
Take a shower just thinking about that.
Well, can we talk about Bob almost sounded like he was mocking having morals and scruples? He was like, you
Just
have
the
your
use of
morals. Like, you
scruples.
could hear the air quotes.
I think the use of the word scruples is why we're pushing past 25,000 individual downloads on this podcast. Josh, you got a chance to talk to EJ. Say it.
Indoma Ogar.
You say it so well. It's beautiful.
I do. It rolls.
Indoma Ogar. Did I say that right? Yeah. A chance to talk to him. The recent commit.
I mean, obviously, it's just been a big week for you with the commitment. What's that been like? What's life been like since you made your decision, man?
It's been great. I feel like it's a huge weight off my shoulders. I'm still gonna take my officials, but see what's out there. But OU is that place for me right now.
Okay. Now, speaking of that, do you know any of the 5 that you'll take?
Not yet. I know I'm gonna take OU during their season probably. Okay. But we'll have to see. Not yet.
Now, he seems like he's been, he's one of the more approachable guys that's out there, and pretty forthcoming with what he has to say. I know that was kind of, at the end of your commitment article, Josh, it was kind of, I don't want to say you slid it in there about the, taking the commitments, but, it's always a situation where everybody's like, oh, you committed, and then they're like, what are you talking about, 5 visits? Like, you're committed. But later on in the interview, people have seen it on Soonerscoop.com already on the message boards. Basically, he seems kind of clueless, right, about who those 5 visits are going to be with.
He did, and to me, that always is a good sign. If a kid can sit there and be like, I'm going to do this, this, and this, then it almost feels like the commitment was part of a plan. You know, like I wanted to do that, and so I'm going to do that, and you know, it feels like that it wasn't really, oh, I love Oklahoma, that's all I want to do. This was the time I was going to commit, and then I was going to always take 5 to whatever arrangement of schools were still involved with me. So I thought that's a good sign. And like I said, I think this is a kid that wants to enjoy the process. He's talking about recruiting other guys to Oklahoma. Obviously, he's got a teammate in Theo Wease that really kind of crazily, for the number 3 guy in the country, doesn't show any sign of interest in other programs. He seems very locked in. And you'd expect it to kind of be the other way around, but I think Oklahoma's in perfectly good shape with EJ. I don't think there's any reason to be overly concerned.
To me, Bob, it seems like when Oklahoma, one thing that they're doing a really good job of is when kids make these decisions, they really go out of their way to get the families involved too. Like it almost feels like now when I see these kids committing, like it's a family decision as much as it is a kid's decision.
Yeah, because they want them, to not just be committing because of football. If you can expand the relationship to the family atmosphere of being around the coaches and then being around the other families of other commits, then everyone's holding each other accountable. And it's not just, it's because I really want to play football. I want to play for the Sooners. It goes well beyond that. And when you add that, then it makes it tougher to decommit because you start building those relationships, and it goes beyond just, the gridiron, and that's why OU's done so well. When you build these classes so early, the bonds that are forming through months and months and years, instead of just weeks and weeks at the last second trying to put it all together.
Josh, you talked about Theo Wease and his kind of love affair with Oklahoma. You had a chance to catch up with him, and here's some of that interview.
Talking to Trajan, man, I mean, I know you and I talked about it as well. I know everybody got excited about the red-white game, but I feel like there's still some stuff out there that you guys kind of sitting on.
Yeah, we still got some heat cooking up for sure.
Okay, yeah. All right. Well, now, kind of looking back on the visit, obviously, you knew going in you were going to commit. That all was kind of planned out. But looking back on that weekend, I mean, what was it that seemed like that made that so special? I know you guys started momentum early, but what seemed like, I guess it kind of happened amongst the players?
Probably, like, with the recruits, some of us didn't really know each other, but, like, just the event, just the atmosphere brought us all closer together, and I made some more friends and some more recruits that's coming for sure.
And you guys talked a little bit about Chris Steele and kind of his relationship with him, too. He was a guy, coming out of California, one of the other 5 stars that was there for that spring game, and I think you've talked about a lot. You guys have talked about it. Oklahoma has reason to feel really good about where they are with Chris Steele. But just overall, what else did you kind of get from talking to Theo at the opening regional?
I think just, again, and it wasn't just talking to him, it's being around him, because there's been some rumors, Bob and I really haven't talked about him, but talking to some people I know, there has been stuff that's kind of gone around that maybe Trajan Bridges had a problem with Theo Wease and R.J. Henderson. Not like a problem as he doesn't like them, but maybe a problem with where am I going to fit into this? And just being around those two, I couldn't get less of that impression. I mean, those two are probably going to end up being roommates in Norman. I mean, they're very locked in. Those guys are very close. They're good friends. Austin Stogner, as Bob mentioned, came out just to hang out, be around the guys a little bit. He's already earned his opening invite from the Houston Nike camp. So I think just seeing, and Bob just alluded to it, seeing the way this 2019 class is coming together, it lessens and lessens the conversation for decommitments and maybe everything falling apart. I know with Theo and RJ already having committed and decommitted once before, I understand that people are going to have a little trepidation. But just looking at it, I don't see it. I mean, don't get me wrong, probably one of the current commitments will at some point either decommit or start looking around, however you want to say that. But I still don't think there's going to be any – I think the core of this class should hold together just fine.
Well, Bob, you wrote about it. I mean, that's the gamble that Oklahoma has taken by making the spring game as big a part of things as they did. But at the same time, who can really sit and criticize a program when they're number one in the country in the rivals team rankings by, I haven't looked at the, in the last couple of days, but they were like 300 points ahead of of who was in second. I can't, but Florida State. No, I can't remember. But I mean, they were head and shoulders above the rest of the country.
Yeah, and you're already starting to see the pros and cons. You had Jerry and Jones commit to OU coming off spring game weekend. He's supposed to be at the opening, and we're supposed to actually get to see him last weekend. Instead, he's in Starkville the entire weekend. I mean, that's what you're going to have to be fighting. Whether or not you did these visits too soon, but whether or not it would have mattered anyway. I mean, if this kid's going to go to Mississippi State, it really wouldn't have mattered when you got him to campus. At least now you have him in the fold and you're in the driver's seat and you've got that momentum. It's going to have to be something that Mississippi State can offer that OU can't at the moment. And right now it's hard to say that the Bulldogs would be the best option for Jones, but this is the dilemma. Whether or not you brought him in too early and that euphoria, that moment goes away as time keeps going.
And the Bagmen are definitely in Starkville.
I think Bob just accused Mississippi State of potentially cheating.
That's fine. Everybody does.
No, it's fine. It's just what I heard.
Must be really working out for them. They're actually in the top 20 right now, team rankings.
God, who took over for Mullen there?
The OC from Penn State with Moorhead.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
An unfortunate name. All right, one of the guys there that you talked to.
I'd rather have the last name Moorhead than be the head coach at Mississippi State.
What about Goodhead?
I bet he gets no head.
I don't think that's a name you want at all. I think Goodhead's way worse than Moorhead. Moorhead's that could be a request. Goodhead is a.
I just said it was an unfortunate name. I mean, yeah. You don't want head in your last name.
Yeah, fair. Goodhead's like advertising. That's not good for anybody.
There goes the Goodhead Mortgage Company that was trying to sponsor our podcast. One guy that you got to talk to that has been very elusive to OU fans is, and I think it causes a little bit of a panic anytime his name is mentioned because his brother is named Justice and he's one of the best running backs in the country. But you finally got to catch up with Dax Hill at the opening and thought that was an interesting conversation.
Now, I almost got the impression from some people that they were a little surprised that Oklahoma made the list, and I didn't get that. I didn't have that feeling at all. But just it's a place maybe that you haven't been down there for some of the junior days, some of the other events. Is that just been a deal where the kind of conflicting schedules as far as going to Michigan? That some of those visits.
We talking about Oklahoma? Do I haven't visited Oklahoma?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Really, I was supposed to go down to the spring game, but I had an ACT. I was planning on going, so things just happened. So I really didn't have a chance to go up to OU. But whenever my schedule is free, I'll be up there.
How do you and your brother kind of balance that? Obviously, I'm sure he wants you at Oklahoma State, but at the same time, he loves you, wants you to do what's right for you. That kind of thing. Is that pretty much where you leave it, or do you guys talk about it quite a bit?
Once this process started for me, he was kind of years ago. He was on me pretty hard, but now, everything's smooth right now. But he really just wanted me to go where I want to go and just where I can just succeed at. It doesn't matter if it's in-state or out-of-state.
Okay.
And Josh, you talked about his top six, and I thought Josh turned into kind of like you were investigative journalist, you were murder reporter guy, kind of. You were like, so you haven't been down to OU? What's up with that, dude? Everybody thinks that there's no way you're going to Oklahoma. Tell me different. Prove me wrong.
Well, it's probably one of 4 interviews I'll do with Dax for his entire recruiting, I don't know what journey, what the hell you want to call that.
Process.
But,
what we call it.
Yeah, there we go. Process is much better and much more fitting and absolutely the word I was looking for. So that's really helpful. A couple things I should note before we get into that. One, during that interview, I had currently been up for about 15 hours at that point in time, and Bob and I had stood in the sun for about 10 hours at that point, Bob, somewhere in that range. Yep. My scalp is still burned. I have a sunburn because I've got a part line in my hair, and I have a red streak running right down the part of my hair. It's pretty impressive to take the girls to school in the morning. But anyway, as far as Dax, I thought some of his answers were pretty interesting. He was clearly wanted to make it clear, I'm very interested in Oklahoma. I just haven't been able to go down there. And he told me, and I reported it to the board, that he would have been at the spring game if not for the ACT. So that was that's a reasonable excuse to not be there. So with Dax, like I said, I've talked to a lot of people, and I can say whether it's Oklahoma State, whether it's Ohio State, whether it's Alabama, no one knows what Dax Hill is thinking. He has not tipped his hand to anyone. He has not come away from a visit, kind of coming back to his people or in the Tulsa area saying, well, this is what I'm going to do. I think he's one of those kids that legitimately is a pretty open book. He's still waiting to see what happens. I'll say, and I don't want to take this away from Bob because I know it's something he's hit on and he's dead right. Dax is a really laid-back kid. He's really reserved. I can see Kerry Cooks and him having a very good feel in that way because Cooks is the same kind of guy. He's not a high-pressure recruiter. He's not putting the foot down on any of these guys. He can play it cool if that's what needs to be. And I think as time goes on, that'll be better because, let's face it, as OSU gets closer and closer to signing day, the pressure is going to get more and more intense for them to land Dax Hill because, A, his brother is likely going to go through his last season of football this year. So there's going to be a expiration date on being able to sell, the idea of play where your brother played. And also, everyone expects him to go to Oklahoma State. So I think there is something that can help Oklahoma if they can just be patient with him and kind of ride this out.
Yeah, it's weird as those reserve guys are always guys in the past that I remember thinking like, okay, what's this guy thinking and how's he ever going to come to a decision of what he likes or doesn't like? And then all of a sudden that kid like falls in love with a school that you don't understand why. You don't know really what sets them apart. It just so happens that something clicked with that kid in that school and you never really have a reason why. I don't know with this staff if you really have to worry about that as much, though. It seems like they're pretty good at tapping into a kid's personality.
Yeah, when you look at Dax, all the rage was about LSU and how
except for Josh Proctor, they got
how LSU is going to be the main competition to try to get him, and then LSU doesn't even make the top 6, and then you watch Dax all through Sunday.
Well, have you heard Ed Orgeron talk?
He doesn't want to talk about Jimbo Fisher.
Apparently, I heard about that today, yeah.
So you watch Dax Sunday, and he's there with DJ Jones from Booker T, JV and Hester from Booker T, and he doesn't even hang around them. He's just his own dude.
That's interesting.
He makes a really good play in one-on-ones. No celebration, no look at me. He just goes about his business. It's like he almost doesn't. He looks like he doesn't even want to be there. That is like, all right, this is what I gotta do, and once it's over, I'm just going home. He's just all business all the time.
For both Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, I do think that they're up against it a little bit when you have a kid like that, and they lose Josh Proctor to Ohio State last year. Oklahoma does. And then you look at the draft this year, and you think, okay, Stephen Parker didn't go in the draft. That kind of hurts OU a little bit. Trey Flowers did go in the draft. Actually, Trey Flowers went before. Who did he go before for Oklahoma State? Who was their last guy drafted in the draft?
This year?
Yes.
Who did he come after, or who did he went before Marcell Aitman?
That's right.
Aitman
went after him. So
he went in the 5th.
And Trey Flowers went in the 5th.
Right.
But that's still not great for, if you're trying to say, okay, we put defensive players in the NFL. I mean, Emmanuel Ogbah was a second-round pick last year for them, defensive end. But, man, I mean, what is it what do you hang your hat on for defensive players in the NFL if you're in the Big 12, right? I mean, TCU's had some guys here and there, but
Big 12 doesn't send people from the defensive side of the ball.
When you're recruiting against Michigan and Ohio State and Alabama or whoever, I mean, especially LSU, you're kind of pulling a rabbit out of a hat to get big-time kids right now. And I know you did that with Buki.
Yeah, that's what they're selling the future on too, I would think.
Yeah.
Is come be like Buki in a league that will send people to or give you an opportunity to be good on the defensive side of the ball. Help turn things around.
And it probably helps that, they've got young guys playing right now, whether it's Motley or, he's going to be a junior, but you got Motley started as a sophomore last year. You had Trey Norwood start as a freshman. Trey Brown got some playing time as a freshman. That probably helps you a little bit.
Yeah. No, I think it does. They're really having to sell themselves, though, more than anything, I would think, rather than it be selling what they've done in the past.
2 years ago, we thought, he's probably going to have a first-round draft pick at corner in Jordan Thomas. Never happened.
He does hold a combine record, though. Right?
I wonder if anyone's ever broken a combine record and not been drafted before like that. I'm sure it's happened like on the bench press or something.
Yeah, maybe on like the bench press or like definitely not the 40. Maybe like the broad jump or something. Somebody that could just jump out of the building but couldn't play football.
It happens.
Who Jordan Thomas end up getting picked up by?
Eagles.
Well, the Eagles also...
They like underdogs who underperform.
They also gave Charles Walker an opportunity, didn't they?
They did, yeah.
So maybe... Well, they just did win the Super Bowl, though. I was about to say they were idiots, but...
That's the thing that is interesting is that, OU players seem to have value in the free agent market. Like everybody... Devontae Lampkin got taken. I mean, pretty much everybody that could get taken was taken by somebody immediately. Anyway, because you remember with Charles Walker, like it took a couple of days.
Yeah. Well, initially it was with New Orleans, right?
Yeah, with
and
the
then
Saints,
Yes.
And he was there for like 2 days, and then he announced he would sign with the Eagles.
Well, that same thing happened with Lampkin because he announced the Titans, and then switched it like 10 minutes later to the
That's right.
to the Ravens.
He probably got a tryout offer, and then he got a practice squad offer or something like that.
Well, hey, Lampkin he's living the same dream he lived out of high school, man. He's going to flip a few times, going to think about it, and maybe he couldn't pass Spanish at the NFL level either, so who knows?
I don't think they have a big Spanish population in Nashville.
Hey, I couldn't speak to that. I live in Houston. I just assume everyone has a huge Spanish population, so...
But, yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting with Dax Hill because I think he is that guy that you don't know what he's thinking or what he's going to do. And I don't know. If you're Justice Hill, I imagine he plays he's a junior, right?
Yes.
He'll be a junior. He's gone after this year. I mean, he's not going to play with Dax.
Because you've got to figure this year he's going to have a lot of miles on the tire because without Mason, that he's going to be the focal point of that offense.
Yeah. And he's not a particularly huge, big guy.
Mm-hmm.
Although he's bigger than you think he is now. He's stronger back than I gave him credit for when I watched him later on in this year. But still, yeah. I mean, he's definitely going to be I would say he's going in the draft.
Yeah, barring a serious injury, he's gone. I mean, even like if he missed half the season with an ankle or something, I bet he'd still go.
All right. Other things of the opening, Bob, we'll start with you. Anything that really stood out to you down at the regional this weekend?
Oh, just seeing EJ constantly trying to recruit Stacey Wilkins, 4-star offensive tackle from Arkansas, whose decision timetable seems to be changing with every single day. We thought maybe it'd be after the Bama visit, then it switched, and now he's not sure when he wants to do it or when he wants to make his OU visit. But EJ and Stacey paired up together constantly, and EJ constantly talking about Stacey having that OU DNA just like him.
He would have just been a decommitment then, I'm sure, if he would have committed to OU or Bama. Doesn't sound like he's ready to pull the trigger.
No, and it's interesting because like the night before the Nike, he was not going to do any interviews, and then he ended up doing kind of a big, like a group interview that Bob was in on. I mean, he's been an interesting guy to follow over the last month. It seems like a lot of things are kind of moving around for him all of a sudden. It seemed very, I don't know, like slow or however you want to term it now. It's all gotten a little chaotic. So I don't know quite how to deal with that. What I thought was interesting is you had Eric Young, a top 25 guy in the country in the Rivals 100, and you had Jeff Carter, a former OU commitment that is a very talented corner in his own right. In my opinion, is a Rivals 250 kind of guy. And really, you can tell that right now Oklahoma is kind of at arm's length with both guys, which kind of feeds in to what we were talking about earlier with their confidence in some of their other corners from that red-white visit weekend with Chris Steele and Jaden Davis and, those guys. So to me, it's one thing to be like, okay, Oklahoma had a great visit and they feel good, but to kind of be slowing things down with some really elite talents, it tells you that there's a lot of reason, not just amongst guys like Bob and myself, but people that make these decisions feel pretty good where Oklahoma is. So like I said, I think Oklahoma fans continue to have a lot of reason to feel good at corner.
Okay, so we mentioned this at the top. You went and saw Kori Roberson today. You watched the Manville High School practice. He just got the Alabama offer. You had a chance to talk to him after practice. What was that discussion like with him?
Oh, I know a lot of people immediately become concerned with Alabama offers, and I get it. I mean, obviously that's a big thing, and you could tell it meant a lot to him. Just almost as a, I'm doing the right things, I'm working hard, and Alabama was impressed. But at the same time, the thing to remember with Alabama is their offers mean almost nothing until a kid comes to their camp and works out. Like that's how Alabama sees it. They want to work you out. They want to run you through their drills. They want to see what you do. And so they've already talked to him about coming out there this summer. He said his dad was kind of into the idea, so we'll see. I don't know if that'll happen or if it won't, but it's definitely a possibility. That being said, he's still calling Calvin. What's funny is Calvin Thibodeau was there the same day Alabama was. And I was talking to him, and he goes, I just wanted to work hard for my coach. He kept calling Calvin his coach and all these kind of things. So, I mean, there's a lot of reason to think that Oklahoma's right where they need to be, because lots of kids say lots of things, but they don't sound right when they say it. I'm sure Oklahoma, that they're the right place for me, instead of like, it's just little ways you word things. You guys have all done enough interviews. You can kind of tell when a kid's maybe starting to lean away. I didn't get that from Kori Roberson at all. He's actually even contemplating graduating early. So there is just a lot of momentum with Oklahoma. And I will say, watching him up close, continue to really like him. It was my second time to see him in person following the Adidas camp in Houston last month. So, again, just a big framed guy. I mean, he's every bit of 6'4", probably 275, and really fits what Oklahoma wants to do, which is really, really hard to find that defensive end spot. So, like I said, a lot to like there. I think Oklahoma's still in good shape. Obviously, if he takes an Alabama visit, things get interesting down the road. But right now, I think you can feel pretty good.
Eddie, do we want to take this moment to, maybe have a little report on what's going on with OU baseball?
Nothing good.
And that's it. That is your OU baseball report.
They got their ass kicked over the weekend. That is maybe the worst rendition of Take Me Out to the Ball Game that I've ever heard, too.
Like a children's CD?
It's like a...
it's like a church league. Take Me Out to the Ball Game.
Yeah, it's like a child's choir out of Happy Valley or something.
I was trying to find one, and I didn't have a chance to, that's an ad. I didn't have a chance to audition one, so I picked the first one that started. We'll see if this one's better for you. I think this might be a little 1920s-ish.
Take Me Out to the Ball Game, sung by Edward Meeker, Edison Record.
Is that better for you?
It might be worse, honestly.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's like 1920s reporter guy that introduced him.
The ticket. The bee's knees.
That was not good.
What's the word?
Well,
Champ.
They haven't been playing well, obviously. We've lost 3 straight series, but they should...
They're not scoring any runs either. They're not pitching. They're not scoring runs.
Yeah, it's a bad equation to win baseball games. They should win over the weekend. They should win a couple... They should sweep, I would think. Kansas State's one of the worst teams in the country, and then they'll go to Central Florida next weekend and come back and wrap it up with Kansas in Lawrence. But if you can win 5 of 6, get to, what would that be, 15-9 in conference, they'll finish in the top 4, and they're going to get in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
So,
I don't think that's they were any danger, but yeah, it just looks bad when you lose 2 out of 3 to Texas and then you get swept by OSU.
Yeah. The sweep wouldn't have looked as bad if you probably could have won those Friday games against Texas and Texas Tech, because you would have ended up winning both of those series. But it hasn't been good. They just haven't played well.
Do you think that's had any effect blowing the leads in the 9th inning and then the 9th and the 10th inning against Tech on those Friday night games?
No, not really. They've probably mismanaged the bullpen a little bit in the back end. But, Connor Berry's injured. I don't see him coming back in any time in the near future. So They just haven't gotten anything out of Devin Perez on Saturday, which will be interesting going into this weekend if they end up taking him out of the rotation and going with Kyle Tyler, who I don't necessarily say that he's been great on Tuesdays during the midweek, but he's been better than anything that Devin Perez has given him on Saturday. So I can probably get over Jake Irvin getting beat up last Friday in Stillwater. That hasn't happened too much. I mean, he gave up 3 home runs in the first 2 innings, and going into Friday night, he'd given up 4 in like 62 and a third. So it was a bad outing, but he'll move past it. He's been pretty good on Fridays, even going back into versus Texas and Texas Tech and Lubbock. So they need to certainly win 3 games this weekend, though. Losing a game to Kansas State would be like the OU football team going out and getting beat by, I don't know, Northwest Classen.
Whoa.
High school.
Kansas State's that terrible?
Yeah, they're really, really bad.
Let me see if this makes you feel any better. It's probably another stupid ad. Yep. Ads are terrible for podcasts, YouTube, just so you know.
But yeah, so they Still Walker's kind of been interesting, though. He's been kind of looked over as far as
let me hear you.
Turn that drunk off.
Good and loud, Gary.
What? Carey can't even make you and put you in a good mood?
No, you Darvish is getting lit up today.
Well, it's because you signed you Darvish.
He's a dick baller. They need to send him back to Japan.
Is he Japanese?
Okay, Trump Jr.
I thought he was like Korean or something.
No, he's Japanese.
Is he? Okay.
He played for the Nippon Ham Fighters.
Well, yeah, he did.
Is that who Shohei Ohtani played for too? Was he with the Ham Fighters?
I think, frankly, everyone should have to play for the Ham Fighters.
That's one of those Japanese names that they made up, and they're just like, oh, a funny American name.
Yes, he was a ham fighter.
Okay.
That's what he made his professional debut with.
And now he's a dick baller.
Not Shohei Ohtani.
What do you got against Ohtani?
Oh, you're talking about Ohtani?
They both played for the Nippon Ham Fighters.
They both have a little dick baller in them.
Exactly what is the explanation of that?
Somebody that just gives up home runs constantly.
They're just dicking around out there on the mound?
Just dick ballers.
To be fair, Eddie, I feel like we had this conversation when you signed him and we're over the moon about it. He is good to go nuclear at least once every 2 or 3 weeks.
Well, he's been going nuclear every time he steps onto the mound.
No, that's
and then
not
he'll
good.
get hurt.
His best option might be getting hurt right now. Maybe somebody push him in front of the L leaving the stadium today.
Oh, my God.
All right. Baker Mayfield has been drafted. We played that as we were coming into the show today. Just to remind you, here's what it sounded like when Baker was drafted.
With the first pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Cleveland Browns select Baker Mayfield.
That was Baker on Instagram. I did think that was kind of cool that he did it on Instagram like that, and that you could watch it through his Instagram page while the draft was going on. Since he wasn't at the draft, why not? I'm not like anti-big media or anything, but I just thought that was cool.
Well, that environment, you actually have your family and friends around you.
Yeah.
Instead of being in a green room and just have a couple people around. So it definitely made the scene feel a lot more special. You had Lincoln and Bob and Kale were there.
It's got to be the only number one to not go to the draft since it started. They started inviting players, right?
I would think so.
I don't know,
the NFL could not have been happy about it. And it kind of makes me laugh.
Reggie Bush and Mario Williams, were they at the draft that year?
I would think so.
I'm probably being too old right now. But no, I didn't even know that Bob and Lincoln were there until he went over to the side and you saw that they were there. I was doing other stuff, so I wasn't keeping up on social media. I didn't see that Bob and Lincoln were tweeting stuff out, or Lincoln was tweeting stuff out. So, but it is amazing to think that Baker Mayfield went number 1 in the draft.
Yeah, it's incredible.
It's truly incredible.
The entire story going into it, it's just, I didn't think it was a reality until Wednesday night.
When we were in Lubbock and that crowd was chanting F you Baker, the last thing on my mind was, yeah, this kid's going to be the first.
Going number 1.
And you know what's funny is that's what Texas Tech fans held over Baker's head, is that Pat Mahomes was the number 10 pick in the draft? Yeah. He went number 1. Okay, for a Tech fan to sit around and say, well, Baker's, we had the best quarterback anyway. He was never going to play. Patrick Mahomes was a top 10 pick. Baker was a number 1 pick. He was an even better pro prospect than Patrick Mahomes. So you don't even have that, just one last little dagger for Baker Mayfield to twist in the back of Texas Tech fans.
Incredible scene, really. I tried to avoid the draft coverage because you hear so many stupid things, but you just figure 5-10 years ago, no one would have passed on Sam Darnold or Josh Allen, because that's who you're supposed to take.
Sam Darnold is horseshit.
That's who you're supposed to take. They look like NFL
I watched a lot of Sam Darnold. He's horseshit.
But that's who you're supposed to take. So for Cleveland to actually...
I would take Josh Rosen way before Sam Darnold.
Use their own eyes and let Baker, win them over during the interview process and all that good stuff. It sounded like common sense was finally winning.
I loved how on the NFL draft coverage when Josh Rosen was taken, because you know what they would do is they would have 3 little things on the graphic that they would show on the NFL Network. One would be honors, first team AP All-American. There'd be a second little one. And then the third one would usually be what player they most are in the NFL. And Josh Rosen's was, Pac-12, blah, blah, blah. The player, Sam Bradford.
Oh, it did it really?
Yeah, it said Sam Bradford. So it's and the joke was, the Cardinals just drafted Sam Bradford when they already had Sam Bradford, because the comparisons, they're probably accurate.
Sam's not a like Josh Rosen is, but
Sam's a better athlete.
Eddie just found another word that we have to bleep on the podcast.
Is that our first use of this word on the podcast? That feels like that might have been a little cherry popping.
Josh Rosen is, though. He's an outright loser.
I don't know. I just think he's a smart kid.
I feel like he's more I feel like you feel about him like a lot of the country feels about Baker.
Yeah, I can see that.
Don't get me wrong, he's smug, but so is Baker.
I would say this. Here would be my jerk criticism of Josh Rosen, is that I think he might be a fake football player. He's playing a role that he thinks he's supposed to play, but he's not really a football player. He's pretending to be a football player.
The thing that bothered me the most about him, I kind of agree with you, Carey. I think he's just a sharp kid and he says what's on his mind. I don't have a big problem with that. The thing that bothered me was when he was trying to present himself as some big underdog. The kid is incredibly wealthy, went to maybe the best football program in the country, was probably a top 5 player in the entire country, could have gone anywhere he wanted to, and he chose to go to UCLA.
Tells you everything you need to know.
And he's an underdog? He's an underdog in the same way Baker Mayfield out of high school was the favorite.
If you sign on to go play football at UCLA, it tells me everything you need to know.
But if you're from LA, that's not a big deal.
It's a little different. If you're from Texas or Louisiana.
Ronald Jones was drafted pretty high. He went to USC, but is the same hold true for USC?
No, USC is a great program.
Okay. So it's not just about going out where the beaches are.
No.
Eddie, do you feel like you think UCLA is extra soft because they wear powder blue?
No, I
think... Do you think that makes you feel a little bit stronger? Don't get me wrong. I think there's validity in what you say, because UCLA is always a weird choice to me.
It's just a loser. I'm definitely more USC than UCLA.
Is this because you had to go to Waraboko's announcement?
No, I thought people that go to UCLA were
soft
pussies
before then.
Yeah.
Has he played at all?
Not anything meaningful to my knowledge.
No, I mean, I'm with you. I don't think that you're being I don't think that that's just a fire take that can't be.
We'll just need to delete all this though when UCLA beats OU next year.
Well, Chip Kelly is there now. That was another thing on that behind Baker. I haven't really talked about that. I watched the whole series, Josh. I don't know if you watched any of that or not, but he actually went to UCLA's facilities to do the Sports Illustrated photo shoot, and he went and met with Chip Kelly after it was over. He didn't seem like he was willing to talk too much to him about football stuff.
Chip Kelly take off his white hood before he met him. Isn't Chip Kelly a known white supremacist?
Not that I know of.
A known?
I thought that was the word coming out of Phillies, that he hated his black players.
No, he just loved Jordy Nelson. Not Jordy Nelson, the other white guy.
The racist guy.
Oh, yeah. Riley
From
Cooper.
Florida, Riley
Cooper. Riley Cooper, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that equates to the same thing, but I'm not sure.
I mean, look, if anybody's a racist head coach, it's got to be Belichick.
Yeah, he did draft. Drafting Braxton Berrios does not help the cause.
Look, Chip Kelly would, if a murderer could play football, he would find a way to get him on the football field.
Kind of like Urban Meyer with Aaron Hernandez.
Yeah. That was pre-murder as far as we know, though.
Oh, there was definitely some murders going back into high school that we don't know about. There's no doubt about that.
You don't just partake in a crime like that and be kind of virgin. That's not your first crime.
That wasn't his first homicide.
Yep.
Maybe it was the first one that he actually committed, but wasn't the first one that he had been around.
If you rob a bank, you've stolen some candy bars from the convenience store at some point in your life.
Got to start somewhere.
Yep.
Well, we don't know about the past either. I mean, how much easier was it to murder people before cell phones?
Probably very easily.
And DNA evidence.
Well, you know
Why
how
do you have these
black?
what are these black gloves
back
for,
on
Carey?
that. Like my OJ gloves.
Like I love. I mean, like I said, I read a lot, and I'll read like historical books, and they'll talk about like the Old West and like how they would or wouldn't catch a criminal, and basically, if the dude wasn't holding the gun standing over the dead body, they weren't catching that dude. And you're just like, how do they keep any sense of like law and order? I have no idea.
That's why they say you always got to start by just killing a homeless person first to get it out, get good practice. Practice makes perfect.
That's been your method, Eddie?
That's always what I believed would be the method to go down.
I have a buddy that is literally obsessed with the homeless dirtiness of San Francisco right now. Apparently, it is just out of control.
Yeah, I'm sure that it is. I mean, I saw how bad it was in L.A.
The worst I've been in
LA's
is
just
Seattle. Seattle has a serious homeless problem.
New Orleans is terrible.
Yeah.
Baltimore's not a whole lot better.
Which has never made any sense to me. If you were going to be homeless, why wouldn't you go to the West Coast or somewhere?
Why do you think there's Florida Man exists? Because everyone that's crazy goes toward water. I've said that forever.
And the weather's perfect.
Yeah.
Not perfect, but
people
better.
who are insane migrate towards water. Florida and California.
Josh McCuistion coming to you live from the Gulf of Mexico.
Except for, like the Gulf states. I mean, nobody wants to be homeless in Louisiana or Alabama. It just happens.
Or in Houston, where the water is extremely dirty brown.
Is there a lot of homeless in Houston?
I wouldn't, for a city of this size, I wouldn't say so. I don't think it's, I mean, don't get me wrong, they're definitely there, but like you don't come around a corner and they're like, oh man, there's like 7 guys on
There's not like a homeless city or anything under overpasses and stuff.
Mm-mm.
Oh no, we got breaking news out of the Big 12.
Oh no.
What do we have?
Walt Anderson has tendered his resignation as Big 12 coordinator of officials to focus on being a full-time NFL official.
Effective immediately?
I guess so.
Who's going to tell us about the stupid rules that they implement every year now at Big 12 Media Days?
Hopefully someone more boring than Walt Anderson, because that's the biggest waste of 45 minutes that you can possibly have.
He wasn't that boring, though. He wasn't bad. He had that Southern accent.
And it was basically 45 minutes of him telling you why they screwed up last year.
You remember when that guy from inside Texas got up and
tried to assault him?
Accused him of the egregious things. It was that OSU Texas game when the punt got blocked at the end of the game.
That was
they threw the flag on Charlie Strong.
That was a great moment.
That was one of the great. Walt Anderson was involved in one of the greatest moments in Big 12 Media Days history.
We could have had one coming up, but the CeeDee Lamb targeting against Tulane. Someone wanted to get on him about that one.
Maybe they'll just bring in like the most abrasive person possible, and he'll like want to fight with media members.
Hopefully, it's the big armed ref, Dunphy. What's his name?
Oh, you're talking about...
he retired.
Did he?
Yeah, he just retired. Or no. You're talking about the older guy. You're not talking about
Mike DeFee. Mike DeFee,
yeah.
There you go.
He's still around.
He's from Texas.
He is.
Is he?
So I could, maybe Eddie's onto something there.
Basically, the refs...
I wish somebody would say something.
NFL refs must have got a pay raise, and he was like, I don't need this extra job anymore. I'm trying to see if I can find this. I know we play it all the time on the radio.
Or they could hire the guy from the SEC, giving him the business guy. I don't know his name. He's pretty funny, though.
Here we go. I just found it. Angry Texas reporter.
That was the first time that Walt Anderson's life was threatened.
Okay, here it was. And play. Come on.
Justin Wells with Inside Texas. My question is on the game September 26th between Oklahoma State and Texas. That was in Austin. In that game, Texas had a season high 16 penalties for 128 yards, some of which were in very critical situations. After looking real deep in researching these plays, 6 were deemed legit, 6 were deemed borderline, 4 were deemed egregious, and the last one was an unsportsmanlike conduct on Coach Charlie Strong in which the referee instigated contact. My question is, what policies and procedures do you put in place to be sure that there's accountability for when you see things on the deplorable and atrocious level to where it was to the point where it changed the dynamic of that game?
Yeah, I don't remember. I guess some of those adjectives must be yours because I don't remember that we had
getting body bagged by Walt Anderson has to be a low point
on any of those. But
deplorable and
egregious. I like.
He should have asked him how much money. Justin, how much money did you lose on that game?
Justin Wells. I love that. Like he portrayed it as if he was like in the NFL replay center, like in New Jersey or wherever they have theirs, and watching it on like 20 different screens with like 5 people breaking it down. Okay, this is deplorable. This is egregious. This is fair.
Justin Wells. I wonder if Justin Wells was ever credentialed by the Big 12 again. I mean, they basically credentialed anybody.
Day, yeah, they pretty much credentialed
walk
anybody.
In there.
Although we probably don't want to broadcast that.
When he went into the word game, was anyone reminded of Mike Tyson's "My defense is impregnable"? Like it felt like he was throwing out any adjective he could think of into that sentence.
I thought it threw Bolivia in there somewhere.
It would only
knock him into Bolivia.
It would only be better if he would have wrote down his question and was reading it off of a...
Oh, I'm sure he was. He just wasn't nervous. He was pissed. Like a lot of times when guys write that stuff down, they're just horribly nervous.
Yeah.
And they can't pull it off very well. But he was clearly pissed.
Still mad. That's what Walt Anderson should have said. Just still mad.
All right, I want to talk about a little bit about this Behind Baker documentary that they did. I don't know who all has watched that. Eddie, you said you couldn't watch it.
I got through like the first episode and a half, and I was just like,
didn't interest you.
This is a lot.
What was it that you just didn't like?
It's not that I didn't like it. I just kind of knew exactly how it was going to go, and it went about it not exactly how it was going to go.
I think it's interesting because I mean, you remember this, Eddie? Like, we were out in L.A., and a few days later, you kind of get word, like, Baker's still in L.A. Like, what's he doing out in L.A.? Like, just hanging out. And he goes to that Clippers game.
Yeah.
With the girl.
Right.
Emily, she's all over this document. She was at his draft party. She was at his draft day press conference. Or his Cleveland press conference.
You know what? I think that might be one of the reasons why I couldn't watch it.
So, I'm not here to rip on the girl. I don't care what you guys say or do. I'm not going to stop you.
The one... go ahead, and I'll get back into this.
So, the whole thing, like, he's out in L.A., and even people, like, that I knew... Because I was out on the bachelor party out in L.A., and everybody was talking about Baker and being in L.A. and this girl and why he signed with a marketing agency before he signed with an agent. Because, like, everybody's like, you get an agent, and then they get you hooked up with your marketing deal.
Right.
And this guy was like the guy that was part of it. It was like a former equipment manager or something at OU. And so everybody was like, Baker, what are you doing? Like, you're screwing this thing. That's kind of what the feeling was at the time, because nobody really knew what was going on. You watch the documentary, though, and you don't come away as alarmed as you once were. But there was this literal paranoia going on with that whole L.A. scene and Baker, and thinking that he was partying and going to screw it all up, and that everything that he'd done and built was just going to come crashing down.
And as it turns out, every decision that he made, from the marketing thing, which I'm sure was 100% behind the documentary portion of all this.
Oh, yeah.
And then everything that they released, the way that they released the episodes leading up to the draft, to the fact that he went number one. I don't want to say it's unprecedented, but I can't remember a time that, like, so many decisions were made and they turned out to be great decisions.
Yeah.
For him, and the way everything turned out.
Well, and what's funny is the agents that he hired, they're very low-key guys. They don't have a lot of high-profile cases. He told the story.
That had to have been a selling point, too, is you're our guy.
Well, the thing is, like, you look, after watching the documentary, and we all know Baker kind of, pretty well, just his personality. And it's like, the thing that's really confusing to me about the documentary is, okay, the kid that became, like, his marketing rep did it behind, I think Price Waterhouse is the name of the...
I think that's right.
It's Waterhouse. I don't know if Price, I don't know where I'm getting that from.
I think it is just Waterhouse. What is Price Waterhouse?
Isn't
that like a financial advisor?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. Waterhouse or whatever.
It is something like that, though.
So he, like, creates this company with this, but he's got the guidance of the bigger company. And you're like, okay, Baker's surrounding himself with kind of like underdogs in their own right, because he's an underdog. And it's like he's doing it his own way, and that's kind of how I felt after watching the documentary. But the one thing that Baker never let go of, like, to kind of, I don't know, legitimize himself, was the whole Adidas Nike thing. Like, he was wearing Adidas at the combine, and then there was the whole thing, like, Nike called because they were mad because they thought he was going to become a Nike guy. But, like, he celebrated so much when he finally got his deal with Nike. I was like, they're not underdog. Like, if you're going to be underdog, like, go with Under Armour or something. I mean, be Steph Curry or whatever. But, like, and here's a little taste kind of like what that was like, the whole Nike thing.
I'd say that being a Nike athlete and being sponsored by them was an absolute dream come true to be able to sign the...
I'm going to play that again. Hold on. Here you go.
I'd say that being a Nike athlete and being sponsored by them was an absolute dream come true to be able to sign the dotted line on that one. And to be in the Nike family, it means a lot to me.
Which, I don't know, that was the one thing that, like, didn't really stack up with everything else that was kind of, I thought was cool about that documentary. Which and maybe he wanted to be Nike because he knows that helps OU to some extent.
I mean, it's a no-brainer, though, if you have both of those companies come after you, right?
I would think so. If you're an athlete.
Yeah.
unless you're
going to be
for you,
the face of the program,
like Adidas was doing with the basketball players.
Yeah, that's true.
Otherwise Adidas wouldn't have been paying people like they were. We're not going to get credentials.
I was just shocked how. I'll move on from that.
There you go.
I was just shocked how it turned out that everything worked out for him.
Yeah, you take the big gamble like that, and you expect maybe he'll be top 10, top 7, maybe top 5 to be the number 1 pick, and for every move to have worked out, it's pretty strange. But maybe now Paul George will recognize him.
Yeah, that was probably one of his downtime. They didn't show that part of the documentary. But they did. I thought it was kind of funny. He went into his locker room after pro day and after. This was before he got drafted and everything. Or no, this was maybe right after he got. Or I don't know when it was. But it was pretty funny. He went to his old locker and he's like, "Yeah, they already took everything out." And he was kind of like, I think he was joking, but I also think he was kind of pissed.
My corner spot right here, I got to pick it out. I had all my writing on the board, my motivation. When they say it's over, it's over. Kicked me out, took me off the fingerprint scanner in the locker room, can't get in. Guess if I would have won the Rose Bowl, they'd let me back in, but hey, you lose, you lose, you lose.
Poor Baker. Well, no other Heisman Trophy winners won the national championship game, so. Of course, the other two played in it, at least. Of course, they didn't have the college football playoff then, so. So anyway, but, outside of the draft, outside of Baker, I was kind of glad that Orlando Brown went where he went.
It turned out, another case of it just turned out into a very good story.
Yeah.
From everything that it could have been.
Mark Andrews, too.
And they worked out together. I think they got pretty tight over the last couple months, if they weren't already extremely close.
I was kind of disappointed that Mark Andrews didn't go to the Cowboys.
Well, they would have had to.
I guess I'm just stupid, but I guess I wasn't paying attention that there were that many tight ends ahead of Mark Andrews in the draft.
Yeah, there were at least three or four.
And it was like, weird guys.
Even more interesting that the Ravens took the kid out of South Carolina in the first round.
The first round, right.
Of tight ends?
Yeah.
What was Ozzie Newsome's last draft?
Okay, maybe this sounds really stupid.
Here we go.
But
here we go.
Jesus Christ. We get it that it was Ozzie Newsome's last draft. That was like the entire storyline over the weekend.
That's a draft.
Who cares?
They need storylines. They can't keep talking about Baker Mayfield getting arrested.
Yeah, that's true, unless you were watching ESPN, which nobody probably watched ESPN over the weekend.
I'm with Eddie. I've never heard of a general manager retiring in advance. The whole thing was weird.
It was like the Mike Francesa year of saying goodbye, and then he comes back 4 months later.
Yeah, he's back, by the way.
I listened yesterday. It was pretty funny.
This goes to show you, if you're in New York, you panic about your ratings.
He is a piece of work. He didn't even say anything about leaving either.
Really?
He just came back and was like, "I'm not going to mention it. My name's on the room that I'm broadcasting from, but I'm not mentioning it."
I've never gotten him or Mad Dog.
Mad Dog's awful. I've not listened to enough of Mike to have a strong opinion, but Mad Dog's awful.
Mike Francesa is the equivalent of, just think of somebody just with the hugest ego, and then from New York City. It's like the perfect depiction of a New York City
fan.
Yes, absolutely.
Eddie, is that worse than huge ego from, I don't know, another Eastern city?
I don't know who you're talking about. I only talk about relevant people.
Josh, why do you do this?
You do it most of the time. Every once in a while, I do have to, just give him a little chance. But I appreciate Eddie going the high road.
I can't even. I knew where I was going, and I don't even know now. Thank you. Usually out of a panic, I can just move us on. But no.
If somebody needs to be put in their place, we can. I mean,
no. Let's leave that alone.
Hey, I'll take us somewhere else and, congratulate to Eddie, running on his own for a couple on his own show this week. I went on with him. He didn't seem to burn the place down while I was there. It all seemed pretty good.
Not yet.
He and Bob run that franchise.
I thought, Eddie, when you told me that you wanted me to come on and you were just doing 2 days, did that just get extended to the whole week?
No. It was just the 2 days. It was on Monday and Tuesday.
Okay. But, Eddie...
Josh just brought that up because I'd never asked him to come on the radio.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is interesting. I've been on with Al far more than I've been on with you, but you know what? That's okay.
We don't do recruiting in the mornings. We do fart jokes and
no, I'm
about
not
lasagna and
Well, you guys are like a regulated version of this show. We're just going to talk about whatever we want to talk about generally. So
pretty much,
it
works
with less, and F-bombs. So
I gotta bleep you now too.
And I guess we should say, not that there's anything wrong with that.
Stop it. I know where you're going.
Something tells me though that the unofficial 40 isn't listened to a whole lot at the Habana Inn in Oklahoma City.
I don't even know what that means.
You're not familiar with Habana?
You're not familiar with that?
No.
Okay. Well, there's the kind of unofficial straight night you could go check out, Carey. It's always interesting.
So it's a gay place.
It is
extremely,
very, very much so.
Where's that at? Not that I'm going.
Off of what is that? 44?
It's off.
Yeah, 44 and Penn.
Right. Yeah, it's.
I know. I've only heard stories about a place called Angles. I've never heard of that. Inn.
I've heard of Angles. I've never. I can own that I have been to the Habana before. So, but I have never been to Angles. I don't even know where that one is. I've heard of it, but I couldn't speak beyond that.
All right. Really, is there any other official business we need to get in here?
Outside of, I don't even consider Dimitri Flowers a undrafted free agent. Is that weird? I just wish he would have gone to somebody somewhere better than the Jets. I think that Baker going one, as ironic and I guess strange as it sounds, is better than going to the Jets. I think the Jets are a hopeless franchise.
I just think that
at some point,
I just think that
the Browns have to win games. They're not going to go 1-32 the next 2 years again. I would hope.
I don't understand why the Browns drafted the is it the Caldwell guy out of Florida?
I think they just feel like they're obviously
after
taking a chance.
What they went through with idiot from Baylor, Josh Gordon, to now draft a guy that's been suspended for a season, that failed a drug test at the combine, for God's sake.
Not the
what are you doing?
Not the best decision-making process.
I mean, I know it's a 4th round pick, and the guy was probably a 2nd round talent. But my
Antonio
God,
Callaway.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was like, I know that name's not right. I couldn't place it for a second.
Kind of like that situation that you always see with coaches. And I think John Dorsey has a little bit of it in him. He just feels like they can change him, or maybe the coaches feel like they can change him.
I mean, it is what it is. It is NFL personnel people really have no moral compass. If you can play football, they want you.
Oh, look at the 49ers.
Remove NFL, just football people.
Yeah, I mean, unless it's going to hurt ticket sales, they'll do whatever they can. I mean, I think Jerry kind of learned that lesson. We can do it too much and hurt ticket sales.
Yep. Well, I mean, you can think of there's 2 really shining examples. Ray Rice, when they literally walked away from it, and the Cowboys with the guy you're talking about, Greg Hardy.
Greg Hardy, yeah.
Yeah.
So look, the most recent example is Reuben Foster. Beat the shit out of his girlfriend, and the 49ers were like, yeah, well, we're going to help work through this.
Didn't she just admit to lying about that?
Well, I mean, that's the kind of the time-old thing is I have no doubt that something happened.
Didn't they just release what's his name from Missouri, the defensive end?
Yeah.
Alden Smith.
Well, he got arrested for like the 17th time since
But he was still on their roster.
Right.
When he got arrested for the 17th time. And they're like, oh, yeah, we're releasing him.
Alden Smith might have more arrests than tackles.
Do you feel like John Lynch maybe just forgot? You're like, oh, God, he's still in our books?
He might have,
let's actually get this done.
I doubt he's been to that facility in 3 years.
Yeah.
It's just, Guys,
he's going to be over there with the homeless, dirty people in San Francisco now.
Alden Smith?
Yeah.
Very good chance.
Yeah. He's definitely going to end up dirty with like a beard and crumbs in it. Like that.
Stealing mouthwash from people to get
Didn't
drunk off of.
Didn't he get arrested in an airport one time?
I don't remember. It was just one time.
I'm sure he has.
I think he's been arrested in most public venues.
Alden Smith is the type of guy that your parents probably say, yeah, don't need to be hanging out with him.
Let me ask you, free agent most likely to make it for OU?
Oh, you beat me to it. I like that one. I think Flowers is too easy. I think we have to take Flowers out of the equation.
Yeah.
I bet he makes the roster. Or a roster. I don't know if it'll be the Jets, but he'll land somewhere.
I would say if we're not going to go with Flowers, and that's kind of off the board, I hate to say it, but I mean, Devonta Lampkin, if he can just put it together at some point in his life, could be a good football player. I don't think that...
I just don't... I mean, you see these guys that are like, skating past, and, it's like, oh, well, if he could just focus on football, he'll be okay. That never works out.
Yeah.
It never works. If you don't have the discipline to make it through college the way that you are, the way they hold your hand... you have real issues.
Are we counting practice squad? Because I would bet money Lampkin makes a practice squad.
Oh, I don't even say what they're going to... I'm just saying who is likely to stick or have the biggest impact. Or really, if you're a free agent, what you're really betting on is who's going to make the active roster. Probably more than anything.
Honestly, might be Wesley Horkey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did he sign anywhere?
Yeah, he signed with the Eagles.
Did he? Okay.
What about Eric Wren?
The Browns?
How interesting is that they signed him?
Well, Gabe Eichert was on their squad last year. I mean, I kind of got firsthand reports on how things were going there, and they're not great at the center position.
Well, I just mean obviously also because of his connection to Baker.
Yeah.
I wonder if they feel like that almost makes it easier for him to transition.
I mean, it might
think they signed him so there's no fumbles of a snap during the mini camp. Like we can't have that out.
They just want to build the hype.
We're giving our undrafted free agent every start in the preseason. So, guys, what about Badette with the Vikings?
Yeah, that's
just his
a good
speed
one.
alone. That's
I will
interesting.
Go Badette. Yeah, with that 4.27 speed and fact that he graduate transfer and shows he's got some intelligence to him. Again, he drops some easy ones and then makes the really difficult catches. So I don't know, maybe more special teams than anything else. You just try to use the speed.
I mean, we all watched a lot of Vikings.
I think that's where he could make his mark. Is just in special teams if he's willing to do the work.
We all watched a lot of Vikings. I mean, Diggs is a really good player. They've got they got I can't remember the other main guy they had at receiver.
Thielen.
Thielen's really
like
good.
That.
So I mean, I think there's a place for a burner like him on that roster.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean there's several guys. Speaking of a guy that could do it with special teams, Stephen Parker could make the Rams a special teams guy. I don't know that he will, but he could. I mean, he's got. I mean, safeties, kind of smaller linebackers. Those are always the kind of guys they end up putting on special teams.
Yeah, I mean, there's some good candidates all around. What guy were you surprised most not drafted?
Flowers.
Flowers?
Gotta be Flowers.
I've got a man crush on Flowers. I don't know if that's always been established, but he's...
I just think with fullback, you just never know.
Oh, no, I know.
And there's fewer and fewer of them in the league every year.
To me, other than Baker, I think he was Oklahoma's most important player last year.
Yeah.
Maybe not most important, but probably best. Like most proficient.
You just never saw a fullback involved in as many big plays as he was.
Yep. Oh, I mean, I don't think people realize, even like the Ohio State game, he had plenty of big plays where the ball was in his hands, but he also, he became such a focus. Ohio State was collapsing on him, and that opened up the thing for Lee Morris. I mean, there's all kinds of ways that even when he wasn't touching the ball, he was making an impact.
Well, remember, in Bedlam, Baker started off so shaky. It was his big play on his cousin that really opened up the floodgates for OU offensively in that game.
And TCU then admits to trying to shut down Flowers, which leads to Rodney Anderson having 4 touchdowns in the first half.
I wonder what Georgia's excuse was.
For what? Letting him...
For Anderson going absolutely bananas.
Oh, I see. Well, probably OU had a pretty decent offensive line. And they just...
Oh, no, you probably have to ask that douchebag Jason McIntyre.
Random.
If there's somebody that needs to get hit by a train, that's probably it.
The writer?
Yeah.
Is he still with the big lead?
He is an idiot.
Are you talking about that story he put out yesterday, Eddie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I saw that. The big lead has some moronic stories. I mean, as moronic as anyone out there. They are the kings of the clickbait.
Which I guarantee they wear that with pride. Like they think that's a great thing.
Wow.
Which is sad.
There's people around here that also like Skip Bayless, so
let's say one last thing on the draft. Looking forward to 2019. Rodney Anderson, the highest drafted Sooner next year?
Maybe Bobby Evans? I don't know.
Gosh, he's going to make up that much ground in 1 year, though?
You've been around him obviously more recently than I have. How big would you tell me Bobby Evans is, height and weight, if you had to ballpark it?
305, 6'5".
If he's 6'5", he's a first-round pick. I mean, to me, there's not even a question.
But if he can't play left tackle, are you really still a first-round pick?
What?
Orlando would have been if not for an awful combine.
But at least he played left tackle in college. That's what I thought was interesting about the spring game, seeing Bobby play right tackle the entire time.
Yep. Oh, I mean, you talk to coaches. I can remember, Carey, and you remember it too, going back with Kevin Wilson would talk when everybody thought, oh, well, let's move Jamal Brown over to left tackle. And they were like, we're not going to do that. Or, there's no reason to do that. And it's harder than people think it is because it's basically like learning to run backwards at the same speed you've always run forward.
Or, riding with your left hand or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing, but it's completely opposite of how you've always done it.
The Sooners have bragged, rightfully so, about having 4+ players drafted for all these number of years. I don't know if they reach 4 based on who's out there now. They have some underclassmen. CeeDee Lamb
would have to leave early.
He can't.
He's true.
He's just
3?
sophomore.
Oh, he was a true freshman.
So, I mean, you're looking at like maybe a Caleb Kelly, Neville Gallimore. There aren't that, or maybe Marquise Brown because of his speed. But if you base it just on people who are going to graduate, they don't reach that 4 number because the 2015 class has provided a bunch of duds.
I wonder if Ben Powers will get drafted.
I think he will. I bet you Samia gets drafted. Big body, bunch of tape. I mean, there's some stuff to like about Samia. He's inconsistent.
It's going to be interesting.
I agree with Bob, though. I think after next year, they're going to hit 4 without much problem for the foreseeable future. But next year, that'll be their trickiest year, in my opinion, to hit it.
There's 2 guys, and I don't think anybody this year could do more for his draft stock than Caleb Kelly. Because I literally think right now, I don't know what his measurables are. I really don't. I don't know what his broad jump is. I don't know what his real 40 is. I don't know what his vertical would be. I mean, we assume it would be really good, but I just don't know. but he just doesn't have enough tape. I don't even know. I mean, I'm sure he'd be a late round guy right now, but he's legitimately should have first round talent.
Him and Gallimore, those are the two. Got to anchor the defense, and they'll skyrocket.
And I know he's only going to be a sophomore, but this will be a big year to tell whether Kenneth Murray's a future NFL guy or not, because he looks like one, just physically. Doesn't play.
I'm all aboard the Ryan Jones train at linebacker, so
that's going to be interesting
for everybody out there.
They talked him up a lot.
But like even those guys, we're talking about 2017 class members. I don't know who's around that's going to make the cut for the 2019 draft.
I think we're learning how big of a difference when you get to this level that having a top 5 recruiting class is versus a top 15. Because you could sit and say, well, I think for years, everybody's been like, oh, you just get in the top 25. It really doesn't matter. Oh, it matters. I mean, like, the class that's in there right now that they just got, and I mean, having CeeDee Lamb right off the bat.
Oh, you mean, so you're telling me that working hard and having heart,
diving in the rough.
Some people would like you to believe,
bringing your lunch pail,
hard hustle, hardwood.
No, I mean, you can't have 22 Bakers. You're never gonna have 22 Bakers.
it might be for a nice little run to the Independence Bowl.
Yeah, you need some legitimate superstars. I mean, look at Clemson's defense the last 3 years. Look at Alabama.
And again this year.
Clemson's defense has 3 2019 projected top 10 picks on their defensive line.
How many guys did Ohio State have drafted?
I don't know.
Was it like, I mean, I know they got Hubbard,
Tyquan Lewis, who's a Colt, so that's always good.
Denzel Ward.
Yeah, Denzel Ward went with Cleveland. I mean, Jesus, is that the most underachieving team of 2017?
7 Buckeyes go in the NFL draft.
As many as North Carolina State.
2 in the first round, Denzel Ward and Billy Price. Lewis, Baker, the linebacker, Sam Hubbard, a defensive lineman, Jalen Holmes, and Jamarco Jones.
So, I mean, that's 7 out of 4.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like, but Alabama had, 11?
Yeah, but I mean,
12.
the thing is
12.
it's consistent. Like 7's a down year for Ohio State.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Last year they had 4 first rounders.
Yeah. Well, the Big 12 has got to step it up. And they're going to have, they went from 14 to 20. So they did better. Oklahoma State had just as many as OU, right? 4 each?
4 each, yeah. 8 from in-state.
Rudolph, Washington, Flowers, and who was the 4th?
Aitman.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Who I think is going to be...
I think
he's going to have a great career in the NFL.
Yeah.
That was a hell of a... But I will say the Raiders, John Gruden's track record of receivers is awful. Awful.
Which is surprising.
I know you wouldn't expect it at all. Like, you go back and look at his drafts in Tampa Bay. He drafted 5 in the first 2 or 3 rounds. One of them had more than 30 career catches. I mean, just terrible production.
David Carr has plenty of receiver options. If they can't get that thing turned around.
But yeah, they got Amari Cooper and Calvin Ridley now, right?
Yeah.
Alabama West.
Alabama produced, Julio Jones. But they've literally produced 3 receivers during this big Saban run. And they've all been really good in the NFL.
I think 2 are already some of the best in the league.
Yeah.
Julio probably being the guy, and Amari's on his way. So,
all right, fellas, I think that's going to do it. I know people got to run, so appreciate fun getting back together for another edition, and we'll continue this throughout the off season. So we tried to get together last week. It was kind of a cluster. God, now you just reminded me I got to edit. I just reminded myself I got to edit stuff now. So we'll be back again next week, but lots more recruiting coming. We got the 5-star challenge coming up this summer as well. Should have some details on when and where and all that stuff here pretty soon. Just has not been released to us. And some other big news around the site that we'll look forward to telling you as soon as we can as well. But thanks to Josh McCuistion for joining us, and not to mention look out for his Kori Roberson interview coming on Soonerscoop.com. Lots of opening coverage out there. Bob's been previewing the spring, all the positions coming out. I've got some more stuff I think people are going to like coming out here pretty soon as well. So thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks to Eddie Radosevich. Thanks to Bob Przybilo. I am Carey Murdoch, and we'll see you guys next time right back here on the Unofficial 40 on Soonerscoop.com.